And this is Chelsea, and she's with Birch and Lime, and we've got Mikkel here. That's me. I'm recording with Chelsea on my own today because we're doing a little bit of a different format since the start of the new year, where Nick is running his own gigs for 30, 40 minutes, and I'm doing the same. And then Nick and I collaborate, get together again for our anchor shows. And we're just going to see how this resonates with you listeners, because we haven't run this type of format that's separated and then we get together and then we separate and we run some guest shows of our own. But today I'm proud to be with you, Chelsea. This is going to be very fun. And I actually think this is really kind of sweet that even though there's been a massive gap in communication between the two of us, the very start of our meeting one another over email was what seems like a different lifetime ago. It was 2014.
Which is, insane.
It is insane to think about that, just because if you think about where your career was back then, I remember I was far more hungry. Okay, there you go. Isn't that funny to think about now? Which, sometimes it's good to reflect on those umpteenth segments of years ago to understand how far you've gotten and appreciate the stresses that you've undergone to where you live today. So Chelsea, just go ahead and share a little bit about what jump-started our connection from the beginning, if you don't mind, and then you can kind of tap into the start of your own first client in your independent practice at the very start.
Oh yeah, I mean it's such an insane story to think about. I mean, so you're going 10 years ago.
Plus.
I was 21, 22 at that point. And
I'm still so young, Chelsea.
I just turned 33 a couple of weeks ago. But I was in college, and I was actually found your podcast because I had an hour and a half drive to school.
Yeah.
And so I've genuinely tried to forget that time of my life.
Right.
But I had an hour and a half one way, 4 days a week. And so I was spending a lot of time in the car, and I was driving to the satellite campus so currently based in Lexington, Kentucky. And we had actually just moved here. I just got married 3 months prior to moving down, trying to
all these
college,
changes.
All of these changes. And my first job here, so talking about that first client. So I was bartending at the time at this craft beer bar, and doing so much driving. And so I started listening to the podcast, and I was studying graphic design. That was my I guess fine art was my major, but I feel like most people have a fine art degree don't actually do it for the fine art.
And right.
So graphic design, and then I started listening to your podcast because I hope none of my old teachers listen to that. I mean, I hope they do, because it's a great podcast, but I hope they're not listening to me specifically now. I hated the program. I didn't feel like I was learning what I needed to learn to be successful outside of school and outside of fine art.
At that time, did you know what you wanted to do? Did you know you wanted to jumpstart your own independent practice?
So
even then?
No. I think for me that was like the pipe dream, right?
Yeah.
That was something that I was like, oh, that's so cool. I
can relate with that. Pipe dream is actually a good way to express that.
Yeah. I had been following a lot of what Chris Doe had been doing, which I don't know if you're familiar with him. I ended up actually in one of his live recorded classes. So if you want to see me cry, go through if you want to see me cry on camera, go through his Stylescape course. He complimented me one time and I cried over it. I try not to be super emotional, but people that I look up to, it's like you give me an ounce of attention and I'm just like sobbing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so no, I felt like I learned more from listening to you and Nick talk about the processes and what was relevant at the time,
Interesting.
I felt like I learned more
than the class you were paying for.
Than the class that I was paying for. So I mean, yeah, from there, I actually spent quite a few years in marketing departments, and I got so tired of somebody who's never done my job telling me how to do it.
Mm.
And at one point, I just kind of had enough. I was like, I'm out.
Yeah, and then politics get involved, and then it becomes less and less about the learning experience of the hands-on material at any given time. Okay, so that's interesting. So share the tidbit about the jump start to your business, though, your first client during that time frame.
Yeah, so I was bartending, and I actually I was just your lowly bartender, and a guy who worked in a kitchen, his name is David Workman. He got a new job at a local brewery here in town called Blue Stallion, and he was their head brewer. He had been home brewing, and then they hired him on to start brewing for them. And I remember getting a text from him, and he was like, "Hey, like you're studying graphic design, right?" I was like, "Yes, why?" And he was like, "Would you be interested in doing a label like for the brewery?" And I was like, yeah, I would love to.
That,
like, you know,
when he inquired of that, and by that he meant the whole packaging, the packaging design.
So yeah, so they actually
for the brand
weren't in distribution yet.
Okay.
So, and they kind of had some existing labels, but they wanted to do something else. And you know, as someone who I had no business taking this project on, absolutely none. And it's kind of a joke now because like, we went through an entire rebrand about 2 years ago, and like thank God we did, because I had learned so much over the last 8 years prior.
But that's oftentimes what it takes, right? I mean, I was white lying through my teeth in order to get my first gig, and you make it sound as though it. And I'm fine sharing that aloud with you and listeners, because I guarantee you that we're not alone in that vein.
Yeah.
That's oftentimes how you got to get through to your first hands-on, learn really, really tough shit, get through it, and know how to better treat the next round.
Yeah.
So,
and I'm pretty sure I did it for free. Like, it was just like a, let me
portfolio,
use this as like a learning experience, portfolio builder. I mean, yeah. So it's like, my first couple of years were really portfolio building projects. I was in a really incredibly fortunate situation where, my husband had a great job. Like, we were okay.
You were able to play and figure it out. Yep.
I was able to figure that out. And yeah, I mean, all of a sudden, like, things kind of started clicking into place. I learned how to be more efficient and, more strategic in design. Brand strategy became a really big part of my process, and doing sessions with clients and kind of starting to then build out, just think of, things outside of just, well, what's this one design element, but really thinking, how does this, one element kind of communicate with the rest of the brand that they have? And it's like, well, I don't have one. Great. I need to learn how to build that.
Yeah, nice.
So like that, that really kind of kickstarted everything.
So were you taking little small potato jobs in addition to this, or was this your one main focus at that time?
So after I was in 3 corporate marketing jobs right out of college, which I was very thankful for.
Yeah, that's a great experience. Internal, in-house stuff, though. Oh no.
No, and that's the thing. It's like
we all have those stories to share, though.
Yeah, the first 2 were great. The last one, it was just a manager. But I think I learned more through my bad experiences than I did the good.
Sure. Yeah.
But no, so I was kind of doing these small little side projects while I had these full-time jobs until I finally went to my husband. I was like, I think I could make this
go off on my own
job. Yeah, I think I can do it. And he was like, if you believe you can, I believe you can. Like, we'll figure it out.
So what's really cool about the timing aspect to this story? Let's see. What year was that specifically that you made the leap?
That was, oh gosh, I think my daughter, who's turning 7, was less than a year old. So math.
Oh, you
so
also had a baby in the mix.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Isn't that how it goes though in life? When it rains, it pours. Okay. So that's interesting because the reason I wanted to pinpoint that is because during that time for the show, our target audience, and we ventured discussions that were full on those that wanted to leave the corporate gig, in-house creative agency / firm gig, and run their independent practice on their own. A ton of our listeners at that time were moonlighting in addition and freelancing on the side in addition to their full-time job in-house. So, and literally in-house because there was no hybrid / remote full-time roles back then by and large. So
those were unicorn jobs.
Those were unicorn jobs. So I was one of them before we started the show where I was working full-time gigs and zero personal life, just went home, cranked on freelance gigs until it was time to go to bed. And did the same thing all over again. So you had been making that work before you clearly had this discussion with your husband about making the leap, which is so cool because that's literally what we spoke about. You guys can do this. Here's how I did it. And no two stories are the same.
Yeah.
And you can make it work. Here's some concepts, here's some topics for the show to help make it work, make it ride. And I love now in hindsight being able to connect with you in this way because I want to learn. And, brewery, I didn't know about this before we started this episode. I know Nick is going to hear this and go, oh, damn it, I missed it. So we're going to have you on again because he's all about restaurant brewery stuff.
Oh, food and beverage.
I'm going to feel left out once we get the two of you together. Yes. Yeah. It's become his niche exercise and experience and his wheelhouse all together at this point. So that would be really fun to get another show come future where the three.
Yeah, I would love.
But yeah, it would be so much fun.
I would, cause I would love to ask him how that went over 2020.
Yeah.
Almost all of my clients shut down.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. That would be fun to get into some sort of tangent about. But let's talk about how from that point you were able to ramp up and get referrals underway or some of your soliciting under the way to bring more clientele in to where you are now. From a high level perspective, I mean, you can get granular if you want to trail off into any parts of it. I mean, I may do that for you.
No, I mean, it was, putting myself out there. It was a lot of social media. I am very fortunate that I'm at a place now. So if I can do my math right, which I always make a joke, like I have an art degree, give me a little leeway here.
Yeah, same. Same.
I'm in my 6th year.
Okay.
And, I'm very grateful that at this point, I don't really have to rely on seeking out clients. Most of my clients are either return or word of mouth.
Right. Excellent.
But at the beginning, I mean, it's going to networking meetings, putting yourself out there, shoving a business card in as many open hands as possible. Having a website up with whatever portfolio you can kind of mash together, without having a ton of experience. But, it's like, that was the most important thing. You say, oh, hey, I do graphic design, I do branding. Like they go, okay, great. Like, can I see some of your work? Sure thing. And you're kind of pulling old college projects and, some freelance projects together.
I know. I hear you.
I even made up projects. I never lied. I did the work, but it's I would do branding for a fake company and kind of, put that up as just like a sample.
But it's actually a very good idea because you're mocking up for mock-up purposes and real life application.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, I had to kind of find a way to show my work without having a ton of previous client experience. And so that was a huge thing for me. It's like, I know there's a lot of the like 30 logos in 30 days. Like, they'll do that, once or twice a year. I did a lot of those, where, then I would do the logos, and then I would, kind of build marketing collateral around that.
That's cool. Yeah. To make it a family cohesive.
Yeah. And that people kind of started seeing that. And then it just kind of spread out from there. And I don't really know what happened. Like, it's kind of like
it's hard. Once it's behind you, it's hard to pinpoint what took off second, third, and so on. I understand. But now, with respect to your largest existing account types, would you say by and large they're in the beverage or food and beverage industry altogether?
So, I would say they were. I would say now it's a relatively even split. So talking kind of pandemic, so many of my clients shut down. I didn't have work for about a year. And in that year, it was a lot of panic. It was a lot of, I kind of pigeonholed myself into this industry.
Yeah.
It was, I was working with quite a few local restaurants as well as breweries.
Yeah.
And it was silent. It was, nobody had income. So they're definitely not going to be spending money on.
They weren't revisiting budgets to know what they could afford outside.
Yeah.
I know.
So I had to pivot, and I had to kind of find industries that were still operational.
And regardless digital first, remote first, to understand.
And I ended up, finding a handful of other clients, which now one of them has become my not only long-term highest paying client, but like monthly
retainer type of
retainer.
Excellent.
And they're in the fitness apparel. Athleisure.
Oh, really?
So, I mean, it was so far out of what I was used to. And so I've been working with them for about 3 years. And so we actually met and started working together, I believe, in 2020, because it didn't affect them. They were still having growth. So, they brought me on, and now I work in tandem with their executive and marketing team and sales team.
Fitness apparel did not take a hit for them throughout the pandemic. Mm-hmm. Why?
So I truly think a lot of it is just people
work out from home, work out outside. If I can't, I'm gonna work on myself. Then
the legging industry went nuts.
Yeah. Well, I just knew that I didn't have to wear slacks and tight ass jeans for meetings.
I don't think I've worn
because you can't see me.
Years.
Yeah. So leggings, I hear you. Bring it on. Comfortability, flexible. Interesting.
And and so I was like, okay, I know nothing about this industry, so I learned as much as I could.
Did you tell them that from the get-go? Were you frank about that in the beginning?
I never told them I could do something I couldn't do. And that's always been a really big thing for me, is I'm going to be honest if I don't know how to do something, but I'm going to do my best to learn how to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was a lot of
good for you,
like researching on my own
and
learning
that
the industry.
Transparency was extremely refreshing and notable for them about you.
I have found that, and this is, some people it's a giant turnoff. I think all of my clients who have come back to me appreciate that.
Yeah.
Because that's who I am. That's how I function. I'm not going to tell you I could do something that I can't do. Mm-hmm. But if it's something I think I can figure out, I'll let you know. Mm-hmm. And then we can make that decision together, whether, you want me to kind of go down that path and try to figure it out.
Right.
They're redoing their Shopify, their e-commerce site right now.
Yeah.
I don't have a ton of experience with e-commerce.
Right.
So I said, look, I can learn it, or we can go to someone who,
what a great learning curve and means for growth for you at the same time. There's nothing short of benefit in that. And I'm with you, because what can oftentimes stem from indicating no, that's not my area of expertise. However, I know that we can get there. It allows you a chance to make some other connections. In fact, for my business, reaching out to other unicorns has enabled me to collaborate with team members in support of my business as partnership, which is great and took a long time for me to learn how to let go. But now that I'm there, and it did take me a long time. So I can appreciate that you're in the midst of not feeling totally confident with that. And I there were some screw ups where I had to redo what they thought they accomplished for the business and pull all-nighters, but finally, found a groove with, not a ton of individuals.
Yeah.
That rise to the bar level that I need and expect, and what is become standard for the business across accounts that, that reach out to us. But that can be really great advantage to be able to knock on other doors behind the scenes, because oftentimes the client doesn't know directly for themselves who you're getting in touch with and why, and how long that collaboration may last before you feel confident on your own supporting their brand. So that's
absolutely. And it's finding those partnerships where you can, if I hand something off to them, I know it's going to be done right.
Confident.
I mean, it can take years
to
source out those people. And then I had with Claire, a developer that I leaned on quite a bit, and she was phenomenal. But it's like, she stopped taking on new work. And so it's like, you kind of have this churn, this constant churn of either something wasn't done to your expectations or they were phenomenal and have moved on. It's like, so it's this kind of ever changing and evolving problem.
Yeah. Placing all those eggs in a basket can make you feel at risk. Yeah. And that can go for bread and butter accounts too. You just explained one that's been 3 years and going. I have a long-term bread and butter in Spokane in the fintech space. And I always think to myself, come, tax time when I'm running the numbers, oh God, what if they call me tomorrow and they just say, we've hired everybody internally. We're good with a 30-day notice. And thanks so much for your time and your support.
Oh yeah. That's entirely terrifying. I mean, especially when, I have very much structured my work and my schedule to be done by 3:00 generally.
Good for you. Yeah.
Because that's when my daughter comes home.
Yeah.
And, for me personally, it's like, that was such a huge perk of having my own business, was that, she plays hockey. I can take her to hockey practice. I'm at every game, when she's, home off the bus, I'm done. I can walk away from my computer. But now that being said, as, my work with my apparel client increased, I stopped taking on other work. You become very reliant on, a handful of clients. And then, you can get into a very scary situation of it's a 30-day notice. Like you said, I all of my
you run
30 days
contractual agreements with signatures on both ends to accommodate that term in the event that the client does opt to shift and turn their existing vendor support elsewhere. Do you have those types of those?
Yeah, but I say yes, and I do, but I mean that truly it is a 30-day notice, and that's definitely not always going to be enough time to find the replacement for that.
Yeah,
especially when you're talking about, this is a relationship that I've nurtured over the last 3 years. It's taken 3 years for them to become, my largest client.
Yeah. What?
It's always in the back of your head.
It's always in the back of your head. But you know what? That's not I go through ebbs and flows of when it's high stress and then it starts to trail off a little bit more and I'm not as worked up about it. But for that reason and protection, not only for myself and my business, but for those contracting and supporting the business, I prepared a 90-day term agreement. And just because the client signs that agreement doesn't mean that they're going to run all design and creative and development support through you exclusively. I'm not going to bring anybody to court in case they say, oh, we would love to introduce you to Trina. She's also going to support some of the work that you've had your hands on for marketing purposes. I mean, they can do that at any time, in which case my hours drop substantially. So I've always been curious about that. You know, my shoulders went down once signatures were made. And then I was talking with my sister going, wait, they can still do whatever the hell they want. I'm not owning their process and telling like nobody's policing them to accommodate my business and that relationship altogether. So then it got me worked up and worried all over again. Of course, I mean,
that's a cycle.
It's a cycle. It's a horrible one. But it's important to recognize that you shouldn't let those risks and what may come get in the way of doing a phenomenal job and benefiting to the best of your ability from any given project, any given month. Life, like for those that live in paranoia, it's the same circumstance. Like you're not going to live life to its full potential if you consistently worry day in and day out. So mom to mom, this is so cool. I will tell myself, Chelsea, the moment that those two come home from school, I'm done. I'm not looking at my phone. I'm not checking email. I won't check Slack. I won't this, that. And I do. I see a ping. I see a nudge. I see a notification come in and I'll get nervous thinking, well, if I don't get back to them within this certain amount of time with a sub project they're talking about needs to be the focus come tomorrow morning, then I don't want to leave them shaking. Yeah. So are you true to what you said earlier? Do you not, from the time that she gets home until the time that she goes to bed, do you not even mess with it?
No. And I will say that's taken so much practice. It is incredibly rare that something comes up that cannot wait till morning. You know, I drop her at school at 7:30. They have early. The elementary school starts at 7:45 because
what?
Oh, whoa. So anyway, so
wow.
You know, in my mind, it's like, and I'm back by 7:35.
Yeah.
So
to get started,
unless it's something that, for whatever reason, if it's my fault. If something is my fault.
I hear you. That's different.
Then that's different.
You need to address it. Sure.
And if it needs to be addressed, I'll do that. And for all I care, she can sit on the chair behind me, and talk to me the entire time.
Yeah.
But no, I truly try to be done. That doesn't mean that I'm never on my phone. That doesn't mean that I don't sometimes, while we're sitting, occasionally, if an email pops up, I sometimes will shoot back. But I'm not scheduling meetings. I'm not typically sitting at my desk working now
hitting the files themselves, touching the files. Okay.
Yeah.
This is excellent. And actually, I think I can learn from you, with this. Working from home has its perks, but God damn it. It sure has its disadvantages.
Really.
It can really be a bitch to work through.
Really suck.
But I'll tell you, I always think, oh, it's just steps away. I can't, I got to look and verify something with the file. I know I've got the program open on the Mac right now anyway. I'm just going to step in there for just a second. It's never a second. And are the kids tired of hearing me say, I'll be there in one moment? I practice saying one moment because that way it's not saying a second, 3 minutes, 4:30. It's
Olivia will
a
set
moment.
a timer. If I tell her I just need 10 minutes, she will go and set a 10-minute timer, and she will be back. And she'll say, it's been 10 minutes. But that's right. But it's like, she keeps me accountable, you know? And so I think that she has actually helped me a lot in that.
Yeah, because I was going to just be true about something for a second and mention the guilt that I oftentimes experience and feel when my mind is not in the moment with the hamburger card game that we're playing at that time.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there and I'm looking at her, but I'm not really playing that game with her. And that's an issue.
Yeah. And that I will say I struggle with that significantly more than going into my office. I have, so actually I'm looking at it in front of me here behind my computer. I have an 8-foot by 8-foot arch, and we built custom sliding doors so I could have that very physical barrier of separation. And I will say the day those went up, it significantly decreased the amount of times I felt like I needed to come in here, because all I do in here is work. This is only work. This is nothing but work. And it gave me, you know, this physical and mental barrier. But so I got a lot better about that. But it's like, I'm sitting at a hockey game, an email comes through. Yeah, I'm probably checking it. You know, I'm probably responding. I'm probably thinking about, you know, whatever was in that email, if it's something that needs to be prepared for the next day, or, you know, some last minute task that came up. It's hard because I want to be a good present.
Yeah. And the parent relationship puts a little bit more of a stigma on all of those thoughts and feelings.
Yeah. It's like, but I also, you know, don't ever want my clients to feel neglected. But it's like, but more importantly, I don't want my children, I just have one. I don't want my child to feel neglected. But it is this constant battle. And like, there are just some nights where I have to work late. You know, it's a deadline.
Well, and that is another good mention for the perk of working from home, because you can manage your hours to the extent where you won't stress in the moment, knowing that you can touch it later on.
If needed. Yeah.
If needed. Yeah. I'm not as sharp. I'm a morning person. I know that about myself. I think that's useful to know that about oneself. But again, that also takes learning experiences and time to figure out along the way, all the same. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Have you ever, or do you envision planning for a space that you can work outside of the home? I mean, affordability issues aside, let's say there is a space.
If money was no object.
If money were no object.
You know, and I say that, and I have really been able to build myself a beautiful office here. Yeah. And I love it. It's a space that's very conducive to creative work.
Right.
But yeah, some days I just kind of wish I had somewhere else to go. So I say this in kind of a unique position here. So my husband also works from home.
Oh, he does. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. You know, and his office is, you know, just down the hall from mine. And I mean, sometimes like I go back and forth because I love my office here, but sometimes I wish that my work was not literally attached to the place that I also rest. So I do sometimes wish there was more of that separation. Yeah,
I remember that travel commute time frame where it enabled me to digress and shift.
Yes.
My husband will come home after picking up my daughter, and she's got all these things that she wants to share straight away, and right in the middle of something right here. Front door is right there. And my
front door is also right there.
Is that right? I need a minute to shift I still got all of these inner workings and to-do pieces on the mind where I am not going to be attentive to you. So, these are first world problems, right? I always try to remind myself of that.
Yes, absolutely.
However, day in and day out, it's all relative, right? It starts to weigh in its own manner for you.
Absolutely. I mean, I genuinely, like, being a working parent is even in the, kind of limited hour capacity that I'm a working parent. Like, I mean, this is something I could talk for hours about.
Same. I could keep going. And listeners, just so you guys know, I put together this rough outline and I knew we weren't even going to get halfway through it, which wonderful. And you and Nick have to get on together. I need to be able to witness these conversations that will stem from this same type of clientele experience. Very fun. Well, Chelsea, lovely to have you. We'll have you again, listeners, just to give you a little teaser. Chelsea will be back, hopefully. Oh, it's been wonderful. Yeah, and it's the start, Chelsea.